Jeffrey didn't want any black girls on that island. I mean, would you look at God? Racism really worked out in her favor with that one.
I've watched a number of videos on the Epstein case, and especially the black women are celebrating that they're not in the Epstein list. But let's be factual, guys. Let's not think racial. Let's not go. If we think racial, we are missing the point. We are missing it. We are losing it. And it's not a game. There are people whose rights were violated, young people who are manipulated and exploited by elite people who are powerful. And it can either be you, it can be me, or any other person that you know. So, in as much as we feel like black women feel like it's divine protection of some sort, we shouldn't be celebrating yet, and we shouldn't go racial. So stay with me up until the end of the video. If you've not subscribed, kindly subscribe to my channel. If you've subscribed already, thank you so much for your support. We'll engage in the comment section.
And happy Black History Month, y'all, because nothing says Black excellence like finding out that Black girls were not allowed to be on Epstein Island. To me, that's not discrimination, that's divine protection. Black folks weren't allowed to get on the Titanic either, and we saw how that turned out. No Epstein Island, no Titanic. Sometimes oppression can actually save your life.
He told, "Don't bring me any N-words. Never ever brought any friends." At this point in the interview, attorney Barry advised the following. At Epstein's request, she at times met people on the beach and may have told them something to the effect of, "If you want to party, go to Epstein's." Following statement, shook her shoulders and head in the affirmative. Clarified that after what Jeff had done to her, she did not want it, the grapes and actual assaults, to be repeated. And she decided finding other girls for him, strangers she found in town, might spare her more abuse.
I've seen videos of people being like, there were no black women on Epstein's Island. There were no black women on Epstein's Island. Do you really, in your hearts of hearts, believe that there were no black or brown or Asian women on Epstein's Island? This is how I'm going to make sense of this. I went to school for Clegg and journalism. Clegg was communications, legal analysis, economics, and government. So I learned about law. My freshman year, so please forgive me if I don't remember the exact terminology for it. My freshman year, we had a Metro PD officer come into our classroom, and he talked about how he goes about doing his investigations. He brought up a term called NHL, which means no human life, or something along the term. People who will really know what I'm talking about, please leave it in the comments. But what he basically was talking about is when they go to the scene of a crime and the person who's been murdered is like a drug dealer or a prostitute or someone who was not considered worthy of being considered a human being by societal standards. This could be a homeless person who obviously has no paperwork and documents, so that means there's no way to reconnect them to their family. Like I said, a prostitute, someone who works on the streets, a drug dealer, a little black child. Like this terminology mostly is applied to black and brown people, no human life, which basically excuses them from having to investigate who killed this person. So there are millions of people who die every day, whose deaths are never investigated. Like I know I might be using the wrong acronym, but there is a thing like this, at least in DC, and this was Metro Police. So it's also in other major cities. If you die and they deem your life not of value, they label you an NHL and they don't investigate your death. It would not behoove me to think that they did the exact same thing on Epstein's Island, right? Because everyone talks about sex workers in Dubai, but no one talks about the African women who are being sex trafficked to Dubai. No one ever talks about, like, the world is very silent when it talks about the sex trade of taking young girls from Africa around the world to places like the UAE, to places like even Thailand. There are young Cameroonian girls who are sex trafficked to Thailand. And you want me to believe that there weren't any black women on Epstein's island? No, they didn't consider them human enough to even be considered victims. And here's an even crazier thought for you. The white women who came out and addressed themselves as victims, is it that crazy of us to think that maybe they also didn't consider the black and brown women on those islands with them as they also considered them less than, so therefore they were the real victims because they were white women? Like, no, you think that a world that put a black woman in a zoo naked to look at her wouldn't have black and brown young girls as part of Epstein's island? Sarah Bartman was sexually abused and assaulted through experimentation, through touching. White men paid to touch her. They put her in a fucking zoo to be watched, and you don't think Epstein's island had black girls? No, they didn't think they were human beings. And therefore, because they didn't get that classification of being a human being, they were never even classified as victims. Because I will put money that they were black and Asian women on that island specifically, because those are white men's greatest fetishes. There's like a whole industry of sex tourism of white men from Europe and America traveling to Thailand to touch young 13-year-old girls. Y'all need to do a little more reading. This is not the era of just picking up shit from social media anymore. Like, yes, there's a lot of great educators on social media, a lot of people who are very educated who are sharing their thoughts. But at the end of the day, they're still just sharing thoughts. And it's important for you to read the same text that we've read or they've read so that you can come up with your own opinion, so you don't get finessed when they try to tell you that there weren't any black girls on Epstein's island. There are 100% black girls. But because they were black, they weren't considered victims. Because the idea of being a victim is only available for those we consider human beings. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I just came across a post that said, guess who not in the fouls? And we all know what fouls we're talking about, right? My thing is this. A couple of months ago, I had a bunch of people in my comments that was calling Michelle Obama Michael. And in the event that was the case, which I know is not, she had 2 babies. That's neither here nor there. In the event that Michelle is really Michael and that's what Obama is into, it's still not worse than being into children. I don't care how you put it, how you frame it. If Obama did whatever like men, it's still not worse than liking children. Y'all logic be crazy. Like, for y'all to get in my comments and be like, well, Obama likes men. It's still not worse than liking children. Unless you tell me it's a little boy in the cut saying he touched him. I don't know what to tell you, because I would rather him like men than to like children. Or maybe I'm delusional because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. Y'all just be saying the weirdest things, and I just be trying to understand who in your family touched you. Yeah. Drop it in the comments.
Thomas Jefferson, Jeffrey Epstein, and yeah, America has always been like this. Let's talk about it. I've said this before, Thomas Jefferson is like my historical arch nemesis. I find him fundamentally hypocritical, and I hate everything about him. Thomas Jefferson was the 3rd president of the United States and one of the authors of the Declaration of Independence, in which he wrote that all men were created equally, right? So he did decry slavery pretty routinely, but at the same time, was a slave owner. Oh, and not to mention, was sexually assaulting an enslaved child and then woman for the entirety of her life. Thomas Jefferson sexually assaulted Sally Hemings from the age of 14 for the rest of her life. He met her at 14 when she was a child. He first impregnated her forcibly when she was 16, and he ultimately had 6 children by her, all of whom he enslaved, right? This is psychotic behavior, which is to say that Thomas Jefferson, one of the first presidents of the United States, engaged in the very behavior we have read about in the Epstein files. But it doesn't stop there. Let's zoom out and look at the history of enslavement as a whole. What you have learned in school has been incredibly sanitized. You have no idea how brutal, how disgusting, how like psychologically twisted that institution really was. And they do that all in part to save white feelings from being hurt, but also to perpetuate this idea that America is this shining city on the hill, that it is exceptional in nature. Let me tell you what happened to enslaved people. Among many other things, they were literally bred. Slave owners would sexually assault their own slaves, both as a form of psychological torture and dominion, but also to create more enslaved people. Despite the horrors of enslavement, these enslaved people did form families. They fell in love and they created children, but they were never promised like the life together. They were routinely torn apart, sold asunder, sent to different plantations, and they had no means of keeping track of one another. Slave owners would also just torture enslaved people for the fun of it, right? Like it was entertainment for them. And you also see that in the Epstein files. And forced labor and deprivation of like regular human necessities were truly and fundamentally baked into the system, right? These enslaved people were not fed normal amounts. They were not housed in good conditions. They were not really given that much shelter. They were not given medicine. They were not taken care of. And you know that Declaration of Independence that this whole country lauds as this beautiful founding document? 56 white men signed that document, and 41 of them were slave owners. Of course, those men had children of their own, white children, but also a significant percentage of those signers of the Declaration of Independence had Black children begotten from enslaved women. At least 12 of the United States presidents owned enslaved people, 8 of whom did so while actually being president. The first president of this great nation, George Washington, owned more than 600 slaves, and he paid like £6 and 2 shillings or something like that to extract teeth from an enslaved person and use them for his own. Which is all to say, the rot that we find in the Epstein files is the rot of America, is the original sin of this country. This is exactly who America has always been, and it's important to keep that in mind.
No.
So, as of today, there hasn't been Black victims in the Epstein files. Have there been Black celebrities, Black people on the logs? Yes. Has there been any damning evidence towards them? Not yet, right? So they're not free. But as of now, there's been no Black female victims, and here's insight on why.
Black girls allowed on Epstein Island? Here's why. Jeff gave in at some point and told him, yes, I'll find some friends. Jeff wanted young, fresh girls, virgins. He told, don't bring me any words. Never ever brought any friends. At this point in the interview.
So this is somebody named Jeff talking to one of the recruiters. I don't know if you guys remember, but one of those girls, after she was taken advantage of, she didn't want it to happen anymore. So she started to just recruit for him. She said, I don't want him to do it to me no more. So maybe if I go recruit the other girls, he'll leave me alone. So that's what she did. And this guy was saying, don't bring me any words. No Black girls, don't bring them over here.
Attorney Barry advised the following. At Epstein's request, she at times met people on the beach, may have told them something to the effect of, if you want to party, go to Epstein's. Following statement. Shook her shoulders and head in the affirmative. Clarified that after what Jeff had done to her, she did not want it. The grapes and actual assaults to be repeated. She decided finding other girls for him, strangers she found in town, might spare her more. No Black girls.
As long as they wasn't Black. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. As of now, there were no Black victims. I'm going to call that a good thing. You know, I feel bad for all the other victims. You get what I mean? But I guess chocolate wasn't on the menu at Epstein Island.
I got some names that I want to call. Alex Spiro, Desiree Perez, and the whole wicked system of Rock Nation, including you, Jay-Z.
Yes.
You who say you rose from the gutter, but you have traded and bartered the souls of young men, and you're still doing it.
So, first of all, it's not official that the Epstein list is completed. They just, it's not official that we have a complete Epstein case file yet. The court has documents which are not complete yet, so it's not yet time to celebrate. It's not time to be racial, and we should talk about facts rather than feelings, in as much as it seems to be a celebratory moment for the black women. We shouldn't be basing these on our feelings, rather we can be logical and be empathetical, be and have empathy, especially with the victim. These are people who have been abused, they have been exploited, and it's not time yet to celebrate. Instead, we should rise, you should rise as black women and fight. Because if we start going racial, these people will walk freely, like they'll go free. In as much as you feel the right to celebrate, you feel the right to feel like to do whatever, it's not the time yet for celebration. And the case was never about race. It's about these powerful people who have been exploiting people, and they are rich people, billionaires, politicians, and they are hiding behind their money, their influence, and behind powerful lawyers that cannot get a hold of them. So we shouldn't go racial. Instead, we should rise, fight, get to understand people empathetically. And so my point is, turning racial into a flex isn't the thing. We'll miss the point, we'll miss the key thing. And people were violated, victims were exploited by powerful people who will walk freely, or rather the victim won't get justice if we start going racial. This is the time to support other women. This is not the time to be flexing around about being racial and stuff. Let's talk about facts and not feelings anymore. Instead, we should ask why these powerful people are able to walk freely after even manipulating people, exploiting people. Why are they able to walk freely? And why has it taken a lot of time up until now for the issue to be exposed? Now, that one should be the major question that we should be asking ourselves about. I don't know about your views. That was my thoughts. Uh, you'll please share with me what you think about the same. It's not the time to celebrate yet. Thank you so much for staying with me up until this point. Have a good one.